Today on Cosmic Disclosure, we're with former U.S. Marine Mike Herrera. Mike is a veteran with a distinguished service record. Today we discuss his face-to-face encounter with a UAP run by a secret unit of operatives. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Emery. I appreciate you having me on.
Give us a little brief description about yourself.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur these days. I do stuff with private security contracting, and I'm a partner with a major heavy equipment company. So that's been my focus these days until obviously the recent events that I've published out in Washington, D.C. with the Press Club, among other shows, podcasts I've been on. So,
what about your history with the Marines?
Well, I wanted to be a fighter pilot originally, but my eyesight wasn't that good, so infantry was the next bet, and become an infantry Marine. I learned a lot of great men I served with, things like that. And it was good to be a part of history in a lot of ways, and being a Marine's definitely shaped me into the person I became today.
And what is your experience with the UAP and the Black Operatives team?
Getting held up at gunpoint with them, we came across something that they were doing illegal. I had some theories at least coming forward in April, May, June timeframe earlier this year. I had hypothesized that they were doing drugs or running drug operations and stuff like that. And when we were intercepted, these guys, they had tactics that were basically what you would resemble from U.S. Special Operations, very organized, very structuralized on their part. The way that they were moving was very rehearsed, very well done. So this is something that told me that this was not their first rodeo, so to speak.
And where did this take place, Mike?
This was in Indonesia, Padang City, on the outskirts of this city, when we were doing humanitarian relief to these people that got hit by this tsunami and earthquake that happened in 2009 on the western part of Sumatra.
And what was your position there? Why were you there? What was your duty there?
We were there as a security element because Indonesia is the second largest terrorist capital in the world.
Right.
So they do a lot of training there. They've got a lot of rebels. They got a lot of forces there that don't do anything good to anybody in the area. So when there's a natural disaster, they like to try to murder people, kidnap, harass, every worst case scenario you can think of. That's what they do.
Rarely. I'm very familiar with that, being over there many, many times. I used to live over there. So you kept referring to these people as they. Who is they?
This black team. So this black team essentially has been woven into everything, including government, military, everything that you can think of. They've been woven in since 1947 when the National Security Act was signed by the president at the time. Their specific role was dealing with the UFO crash retrievals, all those kind of programs to be more kept secret, as opposed to the government and the war machine, if you will, was focused on the conventional warfare, conventional aircraft, munitions, you name it. So this was an organization that was created out of the nature of being top secret.
Now, Mike, did you know at that time when the weapons were pulled on you, like who they were?
No.
Or?
I had no clue. I've had theories on that. The thing that gave it away was the fact that they had American dialects and had American gear. It was the same kind of gear that we had, but newer. It was black OTV vests or IOTVs. They had M4s that had the quad rail system. They had the PIC-16, which is the IR illumination devices for nighttime operations. They had ACOGs, which we had the RCOs, which were a step below.
Explain to the audience what IOTV is and ACOGs. We know what that is.
So ACOG is an advanced combat optical gun sight. So it's like a scope that has a 4x32 magnification. And then IOTV is just a simple ballistics vest with SAPI plates put into it. But they had black. They had no markings on anything. No.
The best equipment.
Pretty much.
Better than yours?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And how many were in your team?
I had 6 total, including me.
Mm-hmm. Why were they pulling guns on you? What were they threatening you with?
Threatening us to be killed, because what we stumbled across was something that was not supposed to be witnessed by anybody.
And what was that?
So come to find out, because like I said earlier, because the containers that they had, that these trucks were pulling onto this platform, which was below the craft, they had these, looked like shipping containers that were black. They had a cylinder on the top. And I had, when I came out to D.C. and briefed the Pentagon, at least the Aero Office, as well as the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Special Intelligence Service, it would suspected it was drugs because of the fact it can be vacuum sealed, oxygenated. From getting information from these insiders in this organization, they had told me that it was humans. Now, it's not just any humans. These are humans that are screened for certain projects that they actually have, that they develop things, manufacture, so they need these people in order to do that.
These people meaning these are trained humans that they're shipping, or are these another type of life form?
So these are actual humans that have what they call psionic abilities, which is borderline psychic. They have an elevated state of consciousness. They pull these people from third world countries, one, because it's from war-torn areas or it's from less desirable places. That
They won't be missed.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and they're not taken against their will. They're given the opportunity to do this. But because of the lifestyle that they're given, clean facilities, clean water, good food, all this kind of stuff that they would give people that participate in these programs. So going from that environment back to where they're from, most people stay and choose to do this, especially with the severities of what they're dealing with in turn.
Mike, are any of the extraterrestrials behind this agenda?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is, because what they call the P3s or the psionics that developed a relationship with these ETs, yes, that's a part of it. So they know what's going on. It's not like they're going to sit here and land on the White House front lawn and say, yes, existence is here. There's proof of its existence all over the world.
Tell me a little bit more about this craft you mentioned.
So this craft was an octagonal shape. It had 8, obviously, sections on the edge of it. It had like octagonal patterns on the actual craft itself. It looked like scales, if you will. And it was hovering about 15, 20 feet off the ground from this platform. And it was rotating in a clockwise motion. It was transitioning colors between a light matte gray to like a dark matte black. It had kind of these slits in it, or looked like it might have been panels, but it was the darkest black color I've ever seen. So black that light was basically being absorbed into it.
How large? What's the dimensions of this craft?
I estimated 300 feet because the helicopters that we flew in on, which were CH-53 Super Stallions, they're pretty massive helicopters. Those are about 100 feet in length from nose to tail. So if you could fit 3 of these underneath this craft, that's how I could tell distance with that. Especially being a Marine, you get to judge distance very accurately because of the training that we go through, as well as, you do this day in and day out, weapon systems that have the mil dots and everything on it. Teaches you how to estimate ranges very well.
Did you notice anything other than the size of the craft? Could you see inside the craft?
No.
No?
Nope.
Was there any entrance points or exit points you've seen people kind of conjuring around?
No, just going underneath of it.
Underneath of it?
Yeah, this platform, come to find out, because after we saw this happen, was a part of that craft. So it was like 2 different pieces.
Sure, all right. So was the craft levitating?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was 15, 20 feet off the ground.
Now, wwhose craft do you believe this is, Mike?
I mean, at that time, obviously with the human involvement.
At that time, yeah.
At the human involvement, I knew it was man-made, because, I mean, there wouldn't be an ET element with a human, especially armed people like that, especially if they were running drugs at the time. At least that's what I thought. So I didn't think it was an actual ET craft. I thought it was man-made, because you could tell it was manufactured. It had paneling on it and everything like that.
You see rivets or something?
Seams, stuff like that. And the tone that it emitted was like a transformer or something. If you unplugged a guitar amp, that's what it reminded me of. That's the only thing. It's not the exact frequency of that, but it's very close
That
to
hum, that kind of hum.
Oh, yeah.
Little bit of harmonics there, real
Correct.
deep tone, huh?
Yeah.
And how close were you able to actually get to the craft? Were you able to touch it, or?
No, we were about 150 feet away before we were intercepted by this team.
And they were just kind of guarding it, you think?
Yeah. They have perimeter set, obviously. They know what they're doing, keeping this under wraps. And so we had 8 guys at least that we dealt with directly. And when we did a tactical column down this ridge, if you will.
Right.
And they had 4 on this side, 4 on this side, and they had what was called a nosebleed. That's at least some SF operators I talked to. That's kind of an ambush point that they do. So they have interlocking fields of fire. So if you have 4 people on one side that can interlock like this, meaning that they can have twice as many muzzles on one person, and still effectively take down whatever group they're against at a very fast pace, if you will.
Mike, do you believe this craft was man-made or reverse engineered?
Man-made is reverse engineered, at least my understanding of it. It obviously derived from something at that time. And, at that time, I didn't think that, I saw movies with ETs or aliens in them, so I thought, okay, that's a cool concept. I didn't actually believe in that stuff until I came across this. I know we have some brilliant minds in the world, scientists, things like that, but this thing was way more advanced than anything at that time. And I know aircraft very well. That was what I wanted to do. And seeing this thing operate and take off was not conventional by any means.
Was there any other aircraft besides your aircraft there at the site?
No.
No?
No. So I'd estimate we were probably about 600 meters away from our original LZ that we landed at.
Right.
We pushed 300 meters up to this ridgeline, and that's when we turned around and saw this looking down the slope, and we saw this craft sitting there.
You said you saw the craft take off or move.
Yes.
Tell me, like, how fast did it take off, and did you hear anything?
The craft is sitting about 15, 20 feet off the ground from this platform, right? So after they got the last truck onto that, which I only saw 4 trucks, I don't know exactly how many they had, this platform rose up off the ground and the craft lowered itself to meet this and get into one solid piece. Then it rose slightly above the tree line, and then it completely shot off left, which is where the ocean is on our direct left. And I mean, it was a black blur is what it looked like. As it was going up, it started to have these lights on each corner start to illuminate. It was like red, yellow, green, and blue. But it was only one on each. So let's say if one corner was red, then it didn't change colors. That was just a red corner, and that's what it illuminated the whole time. But it was still rotating. The pitch of that hum did not change at all, even from raising up to the tree line. And then when it took off, I mean, it had to have been thousands of miles an hour instantaneous. The thing that was so interesting about this was the fact that it didn't disturb the trees. There was coconuts on the top of the trees. Those didn't move. There was no rotor wash. There was no exhaust wash. There was nothing that was disturbed. It was just completely so fast, and it didn't disturb anything. So it was very eerie to see.
You mentioned that there was a truck directly underneath it.
Yes.
And then it kind of lowered over the truck, and it absorbed the truck?
So I didn't see the truck. I just saw the platform raised one like this. So I didn't see a truck actually on the platform.
Cargo container, or?
I didn't see how they unloaded anything. The only kind of, because we're going through seeing this in the background to this team also stripping us of our gears.
Oh,
So
right.
you're going back and forth between. So I'm not 100% focused on this because you got guys pointing their muzzles at you. At the same time, you're in your own head thinking, what are these guys going to do next? You know.
So they didn't go with the craft. They stayed there on site.
Yeah.
And how did they get there?
I have no idea.
Oh, all right.
I have no idea. There's theories to that, obviously. They're on transportation by any means, but.